What's up? What's up? I'm Dr. Omatma, host of Egg Meets Sperm, where we're busting fertility myths, sharing tangible tips for your fertility journey, and bringing you the most knowledgeable guests to support your journey to parenthood. This podcast is for both women and men because getting fertile as fuck is for both partners, don't you think? Remember, just listening to this podcast won't get you pregnant, but following the tips we share just may. Let's get you fertile AF so that you can co-create the family you dream of. And if your partner's not listening to this, make sure to share this episode with your partner. Hello and welcome to Egg Meets Sperm. I'm really excited to have an amazing conversation today about postpartum health. My guest is Belinda Ruiz. She is a family nurse practitioner specializing in functional medicine and postpartum moms for the past 5 years. She is a mom of a 5-year-old and a 5-month-old. During her time treating clients and speaking to countless women in the community, she uncovered a large deficit in the care of postpartum mothers. Belinda helps mothers navigate through postpartum, uncover nutrient deficiencies, and allow mothers to feel whole again. She's here to shift the narrative of only the baby matters after birth. Welcome. It's so great to have you here, Belinda.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me to come on here, and I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm super excited to have this talk because it sounds like you got into this essentially when you had the baby and you were like, wait a second, where do I find support?
Yes, I mean, after the 6-week mark, I was like, I have no support. Like, there's no one here. Everybody wants to blame it on not sleeping and breastfeeding and being a new mom, but it's just not the case. So by the time second one came, I was like, all right, this is where, I really need to put my focus because that's what matters. And getting people feeling good is the main point and not depleted.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about what you have discovered with postpartum health in terms of nutrients, nutrient deficiencies. What have you been seeing?
So I see my moms are just completely deficient. I mean, from iron and zinc, B vitamins, from vitamin D, your magnesium, trace elements, B vitamins. I mean, all of it is just so sucked dry because in pregnancy, you're basically feeding everything to the baby. And we may or may not be eating really well. And then we come into postpartum, and if we're breastfeeding and then we're healing, it just adds an extra layer to it. And a lot of the moms are deficient. I mean, they're tired and they're depleted, and they continue this pattern for years and years after the baby's born. I can't tell you how many times I hear moms that have had kids 5 years ago, and they're like, this all started when I had my baby, and they just never were able to catch up to fuel their body into more of like a homeostasis pattern as well.
Yeah, it's so true. It's even me, I'm like, people often are like, "Oh, you're it's gonna take just like 3, 4 months." I'm like, "Oh no, I'm in year 4 and I'm still postpartum. Like, there is no end to
Yes.
this." Uh,
Yes. I don't even think that we get out of postpartum until our kids are out of the house, honestly.
right? Yeah, it's like, "Oh, my kid is going to college. Finally, I'm no longer a postpartum mom." That would be interesting, eh? Like, just
Yes.
having this perspective of like there's a different level of care that's needed for ourselves
Yeah.
after having a baby.
Yeah. I would
Yeah,
agree,
yeah,
100%. And we don't do it. The baby comes first and the kids come first. And we really don't put this emphasis on us. And, some people would call it selfish. I call it self-care, and really utilizing that time to dig into us as a person, because we get lost in being a mom, we get lost in being a wife and being a business owner. But when we look at us being as a human being, we lose that, and we have to really bring that back and work on bringing that back and being selfish a little bit. And
mhm.
I'm guilty of doing that. And finally I'm like, I need time for me. I'm going for a walk. Nobody called me. No one talked to me, because that's what I need to just feel better and to kind of reboot a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah. So your suggestion is really making time for that, like me time, whatever that looks like.
Yes, whether it is going in a bathtub, it's going for a walk, being out in nature, it's journaling, doing self-affirmations in the mirror. I mean, all of those things are really important to just connect with you and feel like you're a human being too.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Is there I know you mentioned some nutrients that are often deficient, like vitamin D, iron, zinc, vitamin B vitamins, I'm sure. Um, Tell me a little bit about your process in how you help people figure out that they have nutrient deficiencies.
So usually it's a conversation. I will typically test with like a nutrient panel through like Genova to figure out what are we looking at from a deficiency standpoint. Because I can do whole blood serum and through like Quest or LabCorp, but it just doesn't give me a clear picture. So I will do the NutriEval through Genova and figure out what's going on, and then really work on replacing those, and that way we can get the body what it needs to fuel. Because I also feel like healing and stuff, if we don't have those cofactors, we're not going to be able to do it. So I talk with them, and then they're really looking at symptoms, what's going on, are you fueling your body with nutrients? Because I'm not a big supplement pusher. If we have to do it, we'll do it. I want to get things through whole food, but that can be hard in postpartum too. So really looking at the labs, supplementing, and then working on food choices too. And maybe that looks like a meal delivery service, or having your husband cook and having him step up and having specific recipes with that too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is there any particular diet that you feel like is amazing at nutrient replenishment?
I would say any that you're going to stick to. I typically, I mean, honestly, because, I could say paleo, I could say Mediterranean, I could say keto, I could say all these things, but if it doesn't align with you and you're not going to stick to it, then it's going to go down the drain. So I usually tell people whole foods, protein, vegetable, fruit, whole grains or carbs. I usually try to stay away from like gluten and dairy, just from the inflammation standpoint. But foods that are going to keep you on track, but then also fuel the body. So whole foods, stay away from the processed stuff, and just listen to what your body needs. Because a lot of times too, then we go into like food sensitivities if they don't feel good on it. So if you eat a food and you don't respond well to it, or you're tired, don't eat it. That's like my big rule with that.
And do you find that a lot of women have kind of the ability to replenish out of just diet? Because I know you said you're not super into supplements, so I'm curious if you think no,
no, I really don't.
Yeah, and
our foods are depleted too, so I don't. Most of them are on supplements. It's the people that are the ladies that don't want to take a lot of supplements, and then I'm trying to find other ways for them to get it in.
yeah. I usually think of it as like your diet is great most of the time if you're eating amazingly healthy and you're staying on it and you're not eating a bunch of junk food and drinking alcohol and whatever, then your diet can be okay to maintain your nutrient levels. But if you are moving into like a higher needs phase, which if you just gave birth, it's a higher needs phase,
Yes,
then you really can benefit from that like supplementation.
I would agree with that. Because you do need it. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you're not going to have the time to be on like chronometer and looking at like, oh, I've got 100% of vitamin A, 100% of B vitamins. Like it doesn't work. Excuse me, It doesn't work out that way. So yes, I think supplementation is really important, and getting good supplementation with that, and vitamins and minerals, and figuring that out too. Because I mean, even from a mineral standpoint, like I can't get enough. Like during my postpartum, I had to do like an adrenal cocktail because I couldn't get enough sodium and potassium in my food. So I had to supplement with it because of the increase in water volume and needing to produce breast milk too.
Yeah, that's a big one. So in there's so many ways we can go with this. Do you find that like kind of replenishing postpartum is it, or is there something that women could be doing in pregnancy and even pre-pregnancy to like prepare for this postpartum period?
Yes, I would say don't wait until you're in the thick of it to prepare. And even in like preconception phase, a lot of us are missing those minerals. So I tell people, get on a good prenatal vitamin, one that's going to have the higher levels of the RDA, just because the basic standpoint of the RDA just isn't enough. But get on those, work on toxic removal, because if we have toxins build up in our body through pregnancy and postpartum, it's going to leach a lot of those minerals too. So really doing a good preconception like detox before you're going to get pregnant. I usually say like 6 months before you even want to try. And then work on changing your food patterns, changing those habits of, wanting to have that, extra 3 cookies or the alcohol or smoking, whatever it may be. And then that way it's carried into pregnancy. Pregnancy makes it a little challenging because sometimes you can stomach things and sometimes you can't. And at that point I say, eat, so that way we can, fuel the body and get the baby what it needs. But during that time period too, is eating as much nutrients when that first trimester phase starts to dwindle, and eating those proteins and, a good amount of protein, your vegetables, your fruits, your whole grains, those types of things. So then that way it can fuel you into postpartum, and then in postpartum, increasing your amount of protein for that recovery aspect too. I think most people are deficient in protein as well, and it's really important for healing, especially after, a traumatic event that's happened on our body.
What are some other things that come up in the postpartum period? And I think you mentioned it sort of when you were talking about going for a walk and like, leave me alone, don't talk to me for the next 30 minutes, hour, whatever it is. So tell me a little bit about like the energy and kind of the emotions that are happening during this period.
Yeah, so the emotions are a big part. I mean, our hormones are starting to restabilize. We're healing. We're sleep deprived, which is a huge part. We're figuring out the new baby. We're breastfeeding or not breastfeeding, whatever it may be. But we really have to have boundaries on our self-care and with family and those parts too, because I can't tell you how many times I'd be up in the middle of the night looking at my husband and like cursing at him because I was so tired and just depleted and emotional, and and having those crying fits too of just releasing those emotions. So really taking care of you, finding whether it's an hour out of your day, 20 minutes, it doesn't matter, but whatever it does to give you fuel, so then that way you can be at your best for everybody else too. Because if you're worn down and depleted, then that's going to trickle into your marriage, your relationships, you being a mom, kids, those types of things too. And also, if you're not comfortable with something with family, tell them no. And that's probably the most uncomfortable thing, is setting those boundaries with in-laws and them coming over and wanting to be there and making your house more of a mess, instead of saying, you know what, you can come over, but you need to clean my house, you need to cook me food, and you need to do my laundry and put it away and take a nap. I mean, honestly,
That would be nice.
and we don't do it. We're like, okay, come over, and then they're holding the baby, and you're like, okay, well, they want to talk to you the whole time. You're like, well, I either want to shower, sleep, or hold my own baby.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if where you are, they've done like meal trains and stuff. I remember that was a big piece of how my community of friends got through so many postpartums, right? Like, it's like,
Yes.
you're coming over to bring me food and clean my house. Don't look at my baby.
Yes. Don't touch him or her. Don't nothing.
Yeah.
Just take care of me, fuel
Yeah.
me, because I need love.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like between that and there was like a postpartum like new moms group that I became a part of, and those two really were the things that were like helping me to come back to myself, because it was just so eh, I don't know, like I don't even know how to describe it. Like it's so much of it is a blur. Um,
Yeah.
but I remember feeling like so lost, and those two things really anchored, and really like the food and like the meal train and stuff was for the first 6 weeks, and then after that, like I didn't hear from a lot of my friends even. So
Yes.
I had this like new moms group that was my saving grace. It's like an hour on Thursday mornings was the thing that I look forward to for so long.
Yes, it's so important. And, and that's right. I'm glad that you brought that up because, I see it after the 2 or 4 week mark, like baby's not new, like people forget about you, but that's when things really like, your person's back to work. And that's when people really need to step up and support. And I would rather them like no one come to see you for the first 3 weeks. And then for the next like 4 to 6 weeks, then you schedule like people at specific times. So in that way, you get that interaction, you get that support, you get that love. And also tell your spouse or your significant other to kiss you before they kiss the baby.
Wow, that seems so tiny, but tell me more.
Well, yeah, because you're sitting there and everybody matters. Everybody talks about the baby when you're pregnant, and rightfully so. But then once the baby comes, everybody forgets about the mom. I mean, they do. Like, and even us, we're so focused on what do we do in newborn care that we forget to take care of us. And that was one of my rules. I looked at my husband and I was like, "You didn't kiss me. Like, you have to kiss me first. Like, I'm your wife. Give me some affection, pay attention to me, make me feel loved because, I'm hormonal. I've gained all this weight during pregnancy. I'm
Right.
sleep deprived. Like, give me some attention and make me feel loved, please."
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that leads right into like what kind of relationship do you want to create for motherhood? And my husband and I really decided pretty early, like before the baby even got here, that we would not compromise our relationship. We would like intentionally prioritize us because if there was no us, who cares? Right? Like baby's
Exactly.
gonna have, I mean, no judgment. It's great, like lots of things, but like we've just seen um so many relationships fall apart after a baby.
Yeah,
So why not preemptively prevent that from happening? Um, and it's still hard. Like we prioritize each other and it's still hard.
it
So
is.
I can't even imagine. So I like what you just said about like the simple thing, the simple action of partner kisses mom first
Yeah,
is a really easy thing to be intentional about. So I really love that. Thank you
thank
for
you.
sharing that.
Of course, and this is, trial and error things too, because I would tell my clients, I'm like, just do this and see how it changes, and it does change, and they feel loved, or even a foot rub, or tell them you're beautiful, like just the small things of just loving your spouse.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So good. Are there other things that you would like to share about postpartum period? Because I guess the one question I have coming up is like everyone kind of has a different sense of postpartum, and we kind of joked about it in the beginning of like, oh, 18 years is postpartum. But I'm curious, like, what do you actually consider a postpartum period, and at what point, if a woman is or mom is like taking care of herself, replenishing her nutrients, like doing the work to find her space in the newly defined identity of motherhood, what period of time is good for that? And
So
maybe it's different for everybody, but
well,
I
yeah,
don't
it's
know.
different for everybody, but I would say if you're breastfeeding until your breastfeeding journey is done. If you're not breastfeeding, I would probably say about 6 months to a year. Just it depends. I mean, different emotional things happen at different, time periods. So I would say no sooner than 6 months, and that would be if you're breastfeeding or not breastfeeding. But if you are breastfeeding, I would say it continues because you're continuously having to replenish what you're losing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like calorie intake should go up if you're breastfeeding. Nutrient levels need to be replenished frequently. So yes, it's still, yes, this child is outside of you, but they're still kind of a leech.
They
Let's
are.
be real.
And on our sleep, and honestly, I think sleep is disrupted until they're like 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah, because they don't stop coming into your room at 6 in the morning like, mommy, mommy. Oh my God. Let me sleep. It's the weekend.
Yes. Like that's when you get one of those clocks and you say you're not allowed to come out until this turns to a 7, and this is what a 7 looks like.
Yeah, we need we're at that phase, like we need to do something because he can like walk out of his room and walk down the stairs, knows where our bedroom is. So now
Yeah.
it's like this new thing. And oh my God, like school days, we're waking him up like, come on, it's time to go to school, like gotta go. And he's like, oh, but I don't want to, I'm tired. And
Yeah.
then weekend rolls around and he's in our bed at 6 in the morning, like, mommy, let's go. And I'm like, how do you know it's the weekend? Why do you know it's the weekend? Like, why aren't you still in bed getting extra sleep?
I know. It's so funny. They just know. I don't know.
Yeah. He's like planning it out for days. Like, what are we doing today? Like,
Yep.
oh my God, you already live for the weekend. That's not a good thing.
Oh,
Uh,
yes. I have a 5-year-old, so I
yeah,
understand all of
I
that.
know you get it. You get it. Um, let's talk a little bit about um second pregnancies or like being postpartum and being in that phase of like, yes, we want to have another baby. When is the right time to do that? What do we need to do to prepare for it? Um, do you have some sort of guidelines on pregnancy after birth? I don't know if I'm saying that
Well, I usually say like
correctly.
2, yes, I hear you. I usually say about 2 years after they've given birth, because then it allows your body to heal. If you need to go do pelvic floor therapy, you can do that. Like the tissue's healed, your body's replenished, and then most people are done breastfeeding at that point. So it allows them to kind of get a kickstart on, refueling the body. And then, but it's also a an individual choice. I mean, I've had people that have had pregnancies back to back at like 3 months and they're calling me crying, and I'm like, it's okay. Like, we're going to get it figured out. We'll figure it out. We'll get you, healthy and feeling good.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So a lot of women struggle with baby number two or baby number three. Can you say a little bit about what might be supportive for them to start thinking about or plotting out so that they can have, they can have the family that they dream of?
Yeah, I would say if you want to have more babies, I would really like once you're done breastfeeding or done, or if you're not, then really start to kind of look in, do I have toxic load? Do I have anything that would prevent me from having good sperm or ovaries, those types of things? And that way you can give your body the best chance. Everybody's different. I mean, personally for me, it took me 2 years to get pregnant, but that's because I had a polyp that was blocking us from being able to conceive.
Mm,
So really just eating well and continuing to eat well. We're going to fall off the bandwagon. If you're 90% good, 10% bad, then that's fine. But really taking care of that mental health, making sure that your relationships are strong and that you guys are in a good place, because second babies and third babies will change your relationship dynamic
mhm,
massively.
mhm.
And, doing that preconception care, whether it's your first baby, your second baby, your third baby, really kind of honing in on that and doing those things too.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And a lot of times, I'm curious if you guys struggled with this. A lot of times, baby number one will like have all the emotions, even though they don't understand fully what's happening. They have a lot of emotions about another child coming into your dynamic. So I'm curious if you have any like ways that y'all navigated that.
Yes, the first thing that I will say, and then I'll kind of backtrack, is when you have visitors come and you have a second baby or third baby, to make it abundantly clear that they need to address your older child first before they say anything about the baby. Because I can't tell you, and I'm very empathetic, and I can't tell you how many times like people are like, oh, the baby, and then I look at my other son and he's just like mopey and
Yeah.
sad, and it just broke my heart. And
Oh.
and that adds into more of that behavior stuff. Towards the end of the pregnancy, I would probably say is when they notice a big shift. they noticed it too, like a week or two before I gave birth. His behavior was atrocious, and rightfully so. I mean, he had like thrown water on at the lifeguard. I mean, it was just things that are totally out of character. And then the first 10 days of postpartum, he ran away from vacation Bible school. He punched the gym teacher in the stomach.
Wow.
And this is summertime too. And I'm sitting there and I'm like sobbing because, my poor son, who has been by himself for 4, almost 5 years, is just needing my love and attention. And I don't have like all of it to give to him.
Yeah.
So what I would say is do like dates with your son or your daughter and really just have that one-on-one time with them, and have the baby go be with daddy, or if you have visitors over, and have them hold the baby. And just in that way you can help to fill their cup too, because ultimately this is a huge shift for them. It's a huge transition for mom, dad, the kids, and really making them still feel loved and have attention as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
So many pearls here, you guys. So many pearls. I know you have some amazing tips coming up, and tell us about this gift, 10 postpartum items to have near your bed at night. I looked at that title and just smiled because I was like, oh, I wonder what that is. I wonder if there's a vibrator on that list.
Maybe I should add one, but maybe after tissue is healed and you've gotten cleared from your OB or midwife. I created this because for me and talking to other moms, you're like, I just hate getting out of bed. I have to get out of bed so many times to change the diaper, to feed, to go to the bathroom, all these different things. So it was like, okay, how can I brainstorm and really create the items that they need to have right by their bedside? So that's what that title is. And a lot of it is having, your postpartum night cart, wipes, diapers, those throwaway chuck pads. And that way, if you get pee or poop on that, you don't have to worry about getting up and doing laundry. Having a Haka pumps, and that way you can put it on the other breast while the baby's feeding. Having water bottles, like 2 or 3 water bottles at your bedside, and like 40-ounce water bottles, because you're going to drink a lot, with the electrolytes. And having snacks, so then that way you can just eat in bed, you can drink in bed, and then just only have to get up when you have to go to the bathroom.
Nice. I love that. Thank you so much. We will have that linked in our notes, so listeners can tap into that. And and I can't wait to hear all of your amazing tips. Thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate you so much and love what you're doing in this space.
Thank you, and thank you for having me on here. It was so great to meet you.
Likewise. Was that an amazing episode or what? Make sure to check our show notes so that you can link up with our guests. And if you're not a part of our secret Fertile AF community, you can join for free via the link in our show notes. Last but not least, have you showed us some love lately? It would mean the world to us if you could share and review our podcast. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time on Egg Meets Sperm. Peace.